In the old house in the middle of the quiet town, Zelda sat by the window, her eyes dull as she looked out at the empty yard. It had been many years since her husband had died, leaving her in a house that had once been filled with laughter and happiness. Zelda and her husband had built a family here, raising 3 children, Edric, David, and Carenza. To her, the house was not only a shelter but also a symbol of family love. But now it was just an empty shell of distant memories. When her husband was alive, every corner of the house was bustling. They had worked hard together to raise their children, but after her husband died, the 3 children gradually drifted away from Zelda. At first they visited occasionally, but as time went on, their visits became less frequent. Zelda began to feel lonely. She stopped receiving calls, and the occasional visits also disappeared. On her 90th birthday, she hoped her children would come, but the day passed without anyone showing up. Zelda looked at the set dining table, only herself, an empty chair and an unlit candle. The love of family was now just a fragment of memory. The children she had cared for with all her love had forgotten her. The emptiness in Zelda's heart grew bigger and bigger, like a candle slowly going out in loneliness. As Zelda sat in the cold house, hoping against hope that her children would visit her for her birthday, elsewhere, her 3 children, Edric, David, and Carenza, were gathered at Edric's house, not to celebrate their mother's birthday, but to discuss her future in whatever way they deemed reasonable. Sitting around the table, Edric, the eldest, spoke first. "Mom is getting old. She needs better care," he said, his tone sounding concerned but tinged with indifference. "We're all busy with our own lives. We can't spend much time with her." David nodded, agreeing with his brother. "Exactly. Every time I visit Mom, she gets weaker and weaker. We have to do something." Carenza, the youngest, said nothing, but her eyes showed worry, not because of her mother's health, but because she feared the responsibility of caring for her. "We can't leave Mom alone forever," she finally said, "but a nursing home might be a better option." Edric agreed immediately. "Yes, that's right. A nursing home would provide professional care for Mom once." All 3 of their children agreed that putting Mom in a nursing home was the right decision. The discussion became more practical. Zelda's house, where she had lived for so many years, was a valuable asset. Selling it would bring in a large sum of money, which they could divide equally. David quickly suggested, "If we sell Mom's house, the money could give each of us a little extra to invest in our own lives." Carenza pursed her lips and nodded in agreement. "Then it's decided," she said, her voice relieved. "Mom will go into a nursing home, and the house will be sold." The cold plan was perfectly drawn up. None of them cared about Zelda's feelings. They forgot that the house was not only a place to live, but also a place that contained the memories of her entire life. The 3 children had no idea how their mother would feel when she learned that the house she had loved so much had been sold without hesitation by her own children. A few days later, Edric, David, and Carenza came to their mother's house, not to visit or ask about her health, but to carry out the pre-planned plan. None of them told Zelda in advance because they were afraid that she would object or show distress. They considered this the neatest solution. Their fake comforting words and forced smiles hid their true intentions. They told Zelda that she needed better care, and that a nursing home was the right place. Zelda was initially shocked, unable to believe what she was hearing. She felt as if she had been judged, a decision made without consultation, without explanation. The ride to the nursing home was silent. No one spoke to each other. Zelda sat with her hands clasped together, trying to hold back her tears. She didn't want to appear weak in front of her children, but her heart was broken. Zelda never thought that one day she would be abandoned by her own children, sent to a strange place she never wanted to go. As the car door closed in front of the nursing home, she felt as if she had been locked in a life of loneliness from which she could never escape. Edric, David, and Carenza offered a few words of comfort, but they were meaningless, superficial words. They said they would visit her, but Zelda knew in her heart that they would never come true. The feeling of betrayal and pain was suffocating. Zelda walked through the doors of the nursing home, her heart heavy as if she had lost everything. She no longer had the familiar home that held so many memories of her husband and children. Now her home was a small, simple, and unfamiliar room. Every object in the room made her feel even more isolated. The happy memories of her past became distant, like weak rays of sunlight fading away as darkness filled the room. The first few days in the nursing home were a long, unquenchable loneliness. Zelda was lost in memories of the old days, when her husband was still alive, when her children were young. She remembered the weekend afternoons when the whole family gathered together, the children's laughter echoing throughout the house. Now those memories remained only in her mind, while her reality was silence, strangeness, and oblivion. Every time Zelda thought about the old house, her heart ached. She knew that the house had been sold, no longer a place to preserve family love. It felt like she herself had been sold along with the house. becoming a burden that her children did not want to bear. Each day that passed in the nursing home was just a repetition of sadness and regret. Not a single call, not a single inquiry from the people who had been the center of her life. Zelda quietly observed the others in the nursing home. Some old people like her were also forgotten by their children and grandchildren, day by day sinking into oblivion. She didn't know if she was any different, but the pain in Zelda's heart seemed deeper when she was still completely lucid, but was pushed into isolate, stripped of everything she once held dear. During the long days at the nursing home, Zelda felt completely forgotten. Every morning when she woke up in the cold room, she wondered if anyone still remembered her existence. But then, one day, a small ray of light appeared in her life in the form of a young man named Adis. Adis often came to the nursing home to help the elderly, bringing them a little joy in their sad days. He was no stranger to loneliness or suffering, but there was still a simple and sincere kindness in him. When he first met Zelda, she was sitting quietly by the window, her eyes looking far away somewhere. Adis noticed the emptiness in her eyes and decided to sit down next to her to chat. At first, Zelda did not talk much. She was too used to being ignored. But with Adis's patience and care, she gradually opened up. Simple stories about the weather, about everyday life, then moved on to old memories. Zelda began to share about her life, about her husband and children, about the happy days that had passed, and about the pain of realizing that the people she loved the most were the ones who abandoned her. Adis listened, without interrupting, without judging. He felt deeply the pain in Zelda's every word, and that made him sympathize with her. He also shared about his life, about his small family, and especially about his son, a young boy with a serious illness. Adis was worried about his son's future, but his family could not afford the expensive treatments. Adis' stories touched Zelda. She began to feel that in this life, no matter how great the pain, there were always pieces of kindness and empathy. From being strangers, Adis and Zelda gradually became close friends. Every time Adis came to the nursing home, she felt lighter and less empty. The small joy that Adis brought her was something she could not find from her own children. Their friendship grew closer and closer. Zelda no longer just sat silently in her room. She began to look forward to the days when Adis came to visit. Even though they were just short conversations, for Zelda they were a great comfort during this lonely time. Each question, each small gesture of concern from Adis seemed to revive a part of her withered heart. One afternoon when Adis came to visit as usual, Zelda noticed the obvious worry in his eyes. He tried to keep a smile on his face as he talked to her, but the tension was unmistakable. Zelda gently asked him what had happened, and after a moment of hesitation, Adis sighed and told her about his son's illness. His condition was getting worse, and the cost of treatment was far beyond his family's financial means. Hearing those words, Zelda couldn't help but feel a pang of pain. She knew well the worry of a father when his child was in danger, and memories of her husband and children also came flooding back. Even though she was now abandoned by her own children, she had never forgotten the love she had for them when they were young. Zelda knew she had to do something to help Adis, who had always been there for her during her loneliest days. That night, Zelda couldn't sleep. She remembered a secret she had kept hidden for a long time. During her husband's lifetime, the couple had accumulated a valuable fortune in the form of jewelry and gold. Her husband had always wanted to keep this fortune for their children, but Zelda had never thought that she would use it for anything else. And now, she felt that it should be passed on to someone worthy. The next time she met Adis, Zelda decided to tell him about the family treasure that she had hidden away for many years. She told him about the jewelry and gold that her husband had accumulated. The treasure was hidden in a secret place in the old house that her children had now sold. She gave Adis the key to the hiding place and told him to find the box that she and her husband had placed so much hope in. Adis was initially confused and refused, unable to believe that Zelda would be willing to give him something so precious. But Zelda looked at him with determined eyes and said, "Your son needs this money more than anyone else. Consider this the last gift I can give to someone before I leave." In the end, Adis accepted and decided to go find the treasure Zelda had told him about. When he arrived at her old house, he felt his heart pounding, not only because of the hope that the money would save his son, but also because of the great sense of responsibility that Zelda had entrusted him with the family treasure. In a hidden corner of the old house, Adis found the old wooden box as Zelda had said. He used the key to open it and could not believe his eyes. Inside were precious jewelry, sparkling gold bars, things of immense value. This amount of wealth was enough to cover all the medical expenses for his son and still have enough left over to take care of the future. Adis was so moved that he choked up. He could not believe that someone like Zelda, who had been abandoned by her own children, would be willing to give away all the most precious things to him. A person who was not related by blood. He knew that in Zelda's heart, kindness and love never ran out, no matter how much she suffered. Thanks to the money from the treasure that Zelda gave, Adis's son gradually recovered after his treatment. Adis felt extremely grateful to Zelda, not only for the precious assets but also for her kindness and sacrifice during his most difficult time. He could not let Zelda continue to live in loneliness and oblivion at the nursing home. Adis decided to do something special to repay her kindness. He found a way to buy a small house near where he lived, a cozy house but comfortable enough for Zelda to live out the rest of her days in peace. For Adis, that was the only way he could express his deep gratitude to the person who saved his son's life. As soon as everything was ready, Adis went to the nursing home to tell Zelda the good news. When Zelda learned what Adis had done, she was so moved that she choked up. After all she had been through, this was the first time in many years that she felt loved and appreciated. For her, the new house was not just a place to live, but a symbol of kindness and hope in the middle of a lonely sea. She decided to move to that house where she could live in the peace that Adis had given her. The day she left the nursing home, Zelda could not contain her emotions. The warm feeling of knowing that she was still important to someone seemed to revive her heart. Zelda moved into the new house and immediately felt the difference. Every day when she woke up, she no longer felt lonely. Instead, she lived her last days in peace and gratitude. Adis often visited, bringing his son and family with him. Their conversations now became Zelda's greatest joy. She felt like she was living in an earlier era when love was still present in life. Adis had given her not only a new home, but also a new opportunity to enjoy what was left of her life. Although Zelda was living in a new happiness thanks to Adis' gift, her health was failing. The signs of old age could no longer be hidden. She felt more tired every day. Her legs were no longer flexible, and her breathing became more labored. However, Zelda always kept a warm smile whenever Adis and his family came to visit. She knew that her time was running out, but that no longer made her worried or afraid. Zelda felt content. She had lived a life full of love and sacrifice. Although her biological children had abandoned her, she had finally found a real family, a sincere love from someone who was not related by blood. That made her believe that, even in the worst of circumstances, there were always people willing to bring hope. One quiet afternoon, Zelda felt herself weakening, and she knew her time had come. She lay in bed, quietly watching the sunlight shine through the window. Her heart was light and at peace. There was nothing to regret, because she had given all the love she had, and she had received more in return. Zelda passed away peacefully in the very house that Adis had given her, a place filled with gratitude, appreciation, and sincere affection. She did not pass away in solitude as she had feared, but in peace and gratitude for life. Adis and his family were deeply saddened to hear of Zelda's passing, but they knew that she had left this world peacefully. They held a cozy funeral to say goodbye to her, without fanfare, without noise, but full of affection. Adis silently promised to always preserve and honor the memory of Zelda, who had left a deep mark on his life and his family. After Zelda passed away, Adis felt empty and sad. Although he knew that she had passed away peacefully, the loss of someone he had considered family was unbearable. Zelda not only saved his son's life, but also taught him many lessons about love, sacrifice, and kindness. Adis decided to do something to keep her memory alive. He did not want Zelda's story to be forgotten the way her children had done to her. So Adis wrote an article sharing Zelda's life story anonymously and sent it to a local newspaper. In the article, Adis told of Zelda's boundless kindness, of the pain she endured when her own children abandoned her, but also of how she remained warm and kind-hearted. He did not mention Zelda's children by name, but the story still conveyed a strong message about filial piety and family affection. Zelda's story quickly spread. Readers were not only moved by her tumultuous life but also understood the value of love in the family. The article became a topic of discussion at family gatherings, reminding everyone of the importance of caring for and looking after loved ones before it was too late. Not only stopping at the local level, Zelda's story was widely shared on social networking sites, even beyond national borders. Many people read her story and felt the need to change the way they treat their loved ones. Families who had gradually drifted apart suddenly found ways to get closer, because they understood that love cannot be forgotten. Although Zelda is gone, through her story, the lessons of kindness and sacrifice still live on. And for Adis, he feels satisfied that he has kept his promise, that Zelda will never be forgotten. As the story of Zelda spread, it eventually reached her 3 children, Edric, David, and Karenza. At first, they did not realize that the story was about their mother, but the details of Zelda's life gradually forced them to face the truth. Shock and amazement filled their minds when they learned that the mother they had abandoned had left a part of her legacy to a stranger, not to them. Edric was the first to read the story, and he could not hide his shame and regret. He remembered the years when his mother had always given him all her love, but he had not reciprocated it. He had been so busy with work and his own life that he had forgotten that his mother was getting old and lonely. David, who had always thought he had done the right thing by agreeing to put his mother in a nursing home, now felt unbearable torment. He always thought that his mother would be better taken care of, but he never thought about the mental pain she had to endure when her children abandoned her. David remembered the moments when his mother called but he did not pick up, thinking that work was more important. Now he understood that he was wrong. Carenza, the youngest child, who thought she was not capable of taking care of her mother, agreed with her brother's decision. She cried when she realized her carelessness. Carenza had believed that sending her mother to a nursing home was the best solution, but now she felt like she had betrayed the woman who had sacrificed her whole life to raise her. All three children understood that they had missed the precious opportunity to care for their mother in her final years. They realized that their mother had left this world not with the loneliness they thought, but with gratitude and love for a stranger who had been by her side when they were no longer there. Edric, David, and Carenza's regrets were inconsolable. They knew that there was no way to undo the mistakes of the past. Now everything was too late, and all that remained was regret. Their mother's love was right in front of them, but they had inadvertently missed it. Tears of regret could not bring her back, and the expensive lesson of their indifference would forever be engraved in each of their hearts. Zelda's story, through Adassa's anonymous writing, became a profound warning not only for her three children, but also for many others. Edric, David, and Carenza missed their last chance to care for their mother who had sacrificed her life for them. Regret haunted the three of them, leaving them with a wound that no time could heal. After the truth about Zelda spread, they decided to hold a more solemn memorial service for their mother, not only to atone for their mistakes, but also to show their belated gratitude to the person who had devoted her life to her family. The ceremony was held at the new house that Adis had given Zelda, where she passed away peacefully. Although everyone attended, Zelda's three children still felt empty because they knew that her true love belonged to another family, a family that they themselves had abandoned. The story of Zelda is not only a lesson for the three children, but also for everyone who reads the story. It reminds them of the importance of love in the family, of responsibility and filial piety. Those who still have the opportunity to be with their parents and relatives all realize that they should not wait until it is too late to realize the value of love and sacrifice. As for Adis, he and his family continue to live with the memory of Zelda, the woman who changed their lives. Zelda is not only an abandoned mother, but also a symbol of kindness and great sacrifice. Every time Adis sees his son healthy and grown up, he cannot forget what Zelda did for him and his family. The story of Zelda ends not with the tragedy of loneliness, but with the rebirth of valuable lessons about love. For Edric, David, and Carenza, regret will always be a part of them, but it will also motivate them to never make the same mistake with others. Zelda's life, though gone, will live on in the hearts of those who knew her, reminding them that the love of family is never to be taken for granted.